until this Boulder train problem is addressed. So RTD put forward this report. It is not about finishing fast tracks. This, I think it would be somewhat unprofessional. I've heard people call it a joke. I'm not going to call it a joke, but it fundamentally did not meet the requirements of the legislature. That's part one. Part two, so the fleet transition, right? So we have seen electric buses running on the mall. Now, there were problems with them, this particular fleet that RTD bought, but there was still an expectation that the state was creating targets, that we as a city, us as a district, were going to be advancing alongside our peers and building out a fleet that would decarbonize. That is not what is happening. What RTD has done is that they have pushed back all the expectations for electric buses until 2035. They won't get their first next bus until probably 2035. It's 10 years from now. Like, we won't start 10 years from now. Right. The other thing is that they're talking about needing $500 million of debt to cover diesel buses, which is just not normal. Agencies don't usually go into debt to pay for fleets. So RTD made a statement when the media asked about this, saying that they always pursue federal funding when it is feasible. And this is their statement. There's some issues with tariffs, certainly. There's convulsions at the federal level. We see all of this. So I was interviewed by CBS. I'm not gonna play this because we just got too big of an agenda. But basically, there is a shared skepticism across the district that why are we going into debt to buy diesel buses, right? This is not what is normal. Why are we doing this now? And fundamentally, we're going to be asking the board to push back on that, and hopefully that they are. Part three is the budget. So I'm not going to bore everyone with numbers. This is a spreadsheet. I know that this is extremely dense, but I just want you to look at this row I'm highlighting in red at the top. So right now, this is just a story of where we are year to date. Actual on the left, budget is right next to it. RTD is off in sales tax by $13 million year to date. So this is not nothing, right? We're not saying that sales tax is not a problem. But the problem is that they are also saying, and they're telling the board, that their total funding is well off by almost $150 million. That is not at all related to sales tax. It's grants. Now, the commentary in this report was atrocious. This is one of the worst board meetings I have ever seen in terms of actual clarity of information. The board members that I've spoken with have been confounded by this presentation, partially because it started with the end at the beginning. We started talking about the 2016 numbers before the board was presented with what the heck is happening year to date. So this was an extremely disjointed meeting, right? We see that the sales tax is not a cliff, but it's a problem. What the heck is going on with grants? So what was not included in the slides, and you had to listen very carefully for, was CFO Kelly Mackey, who's new to RTD, was basically saying that, oh, well, you know, most of this is just pass-through costs and timing of the Colfax BRT grant. RTD is not managing the Colfax BRT project. That is being managed by the city of Denver. So fundamentally in this presentation, there is noise that is not explained to board members. So now let's talk about 2026. RTD has just announced no more expansion. RTD has announced that their finances are so serious that they are not going to expand service next year, right? And when they say expand, what we're really talking about is restoring service, because we are still nowhere close to 2019, and we are nowhere close even to the SOP, which is this, we've criticized, radically unambitious plan to get to 90% of where we were in 2019. So when we look at the same row here, sales and use versus grant. So what we think they did is they multiplied the gap this year by 2. Okay, off by 26 million. Problem, not cliff. This is not a catastrophe. But look right what's under it, at the change column, the third column over, negative $190 million year over year. It's the same grant row. So the board tried to ask about this, to their credit, and we have not been given a coherent answer at all about what the heck is going on with this, right? Is that one of two things appear to be possible. Either RTD has been running buses for the last couple of years reliant on significant federal grants attributable to operations. Either that is true, or it's not, and it's not attributable to operations, and this is passed through. So right now, the board does not know what is happening. And they asked, and they have not been given satisfactory answers about what the heck is going on with revenue. Now, also, costs have been a problem. We know that there have been huge inflationary pressures after the pandemic, right? But what we can see here, right, you look at the last row in the percentages, RTD is talking about cutting operating expenses, which means it includes hours. So this is like service hours included in this, that could have been included in this. Everything aside from service hours, they're trying to keep steady. Everything else, they're reducing by double digits in certain cases. But we're talking about cutting operations by 25%, but we're only cutting revenue by 16%, or revenue's only declining by 16%. So not only is this conservative, but the reason for needing to do this is completely unclear. And the board spent 4 hours on Tuesday trying to get to the bottom of this, and staff were unable to explain what the heck is going on. So there's a political problem embedded with all of this. So we as a group, right, I think there's a consensus in this room that most of us want to see fast tracks completed expeditiously. As quickly as can be possible, we want to see fast tracks completed. So the report that came out, let's go back to the timeline. The report that came out was not serious. The report that came out did not lay out a path to finishing fast tracks, not a serious one. Part 2, debt capacity that could have been used, not necessarily for fast tracks, but for capital projects, repairing and rebuilding bus facilities, that is being exhausted by an unusual use of replacing diesel buses, something that we don't normally do. Plus part 3, FISA dollars, right, this is the fast track saving account, is being diverted. It's being proposed somewhere between like 60 and 90 million dollars is going to be diverted to pay for near-term expenditures on RTD not related to expansion. So 3 things. Plus, there is also skepticism about to what extent RTD has been effectively addressing its operator and mechanic shortages. Now, RTD reports on its operator shortage. We know how bad that problem is and how it's not getting better quickly enough. What we don't know is the mechanic shortage. RTD allegedly has over 130 light rail vehicles out of service and inoperable right now, right? And we've heard that the bus problem is just as bad. So if the actual reality is that actually RTD has a ton of its fleet just out of service and they're not getting enough mechanics and they're not addressing that problem decisively enough, it's weird. So the 2026 budget, just to put the numbers part to bed, because I don't want everyone to go to sleep. The board was presented a picture from management of scarcity. The problem is management did not explain where the scarcity was coming from. So a skeptic might ask, well, if RTD management just didn't want to do fast tracks, what would they do? If management wanted to get out of this and they didn't want to go through the effort of fast tracks, doesn't this kind of look like a group that isn't really serious about finishing fast tracks? So I think the thing that we're worried about is that there's 3 possible scenarios. And I'm not going to say which one because we do not know. This budget, there's too many questions. The board doesn't understand it. I've got a background in finance and I don't understand it yet. So either there's not a crisis and somehow this budget was presented poorly and we can make adjustments or corrections to it, address the grant uncertainty, and maybe we could avert the cuts, right? Maybe this is not going to be a disaster, right? 2, this is a financial crisis, but if it is, right, this is the same management team that has overseen the agency since the pandemic started and benefited from all of the COVID relief. RTD got somewhere between $700 million and $1 billion of COVID relief. So they talk a big game about transparency and fiduciary responsibility throughout the years, but if we're actually in a crisis, and they had 5 years with huge federal revenue to get the house in order, and they cut fares, they did all these fare-free summer things, they staffed up a police force out of nothing, right? Then they've been making fiscally irresponsible decisions that have gotten us to a place where we are cutting or capping service and hours when we haven't even recovered. We're probably 2 years behind our peer average in terms of hours recovery, just to put that out there. Or, and this is kind of the conspiratorial thing, and I'm not saying this is true, or if management does not want to be held accountable, right, because we know what the goals are, the short-term goals are for our GM and CEO. If we know that the ridership is a problem, that they're not going to meet their ridership goals, and if there's doubt about the reliability stuff, and we also know that we are not making progress with frontline worker retention, right? then if all of a sudden you have a critical budget crisis where you're not able to recover ridership anymore, we're not able to operate, the level of service that we wanted to, does this absolve you of that responsibility? Or even worse, right, if any of you guys are interested in joint service, right, does this picture of scarcity make it that much more difficult for the board to even decide to say yes to joint service as a state partnership? So to be honest, right, we don't know which of these three scenarios is true yet. But what we do know is this is extremely weird. We had an incredibly weird board meeting where the board spent 4 hours talking about numbers and money that made no sense to them, right? So part of this is at least a communications problem. We know that for sure, right? But for all of us who are worried about RTD gaining back its swagger, gaining its reputation back, expanding, if this budget is real, this kills it, right? And this is probably going to make it way harder for the board to say yes to joint service. So if any of you are really into finance and nerdy stuff, and you've looked at this, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. Farrington.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yes.
We don't even know whether the missing grants are federal?
We don't know if they're federal or state.
Well, do we know what the grants were supposed to be? They had a budget for 2025 that had that grant money in it. What were the grants supposed to? Did they actually lay out anywhere where the grants were?
No, they did not itemize them in any detail. So
Anywhere.
if any of the board members can correct me, right? I don't believe anything's been itemized.
Okay.
So yeah, Maitri.
So they did publish a budget book. There are expenses, especially future capital expenses, are pretty detailed.
I know, but have they said anything about grants?
Grants, it just says, a lot of it's just lumped into other. Like, we have no idea where basically any of that's coming from.
Including the board.
And the board has no clue, right? I've tried to reach out to anyone who will talk to me on the board over the last couple of days, and I've spoken with 5 or 6 of them. And this is utterly unclear. And as far as I know, there is nothing that's been published in the 48 hours since this meeting that has made anyone feel any better. So this is super, super serious, because if this budget is accurate, that means that we are in huge trouble in terms of the asks that GDT is going to be making that are future and growth oriented, right? So I would appreciate anyone who's nerdy about this, anyone who wants to be nerdy about this. We're going to be digging into this more, right? Because this is literally, we've had 2 days to process this, right? But I don't know, and I've spoken with my co-leads about most of this, is that it seems like one of these 3 scenarios is true, and none of them are good. Any further questions before we go into normal stuff?
I just want to add a clarification piece. If you add up all of the net deficit between 2024, 2025 actuals, it is much, much more than the Colfax BRT grant income can account for.
Yeah.
So there is a piece of this where money is going out the door and not being made up for by revenue, regardless of the presence of the Colfax grants. Chris?
So, and to be fair though, right, I think the board did actually a pretty good job pushing back, right? I don't know if that's what you were going to say, Chris, but like I think the board asked good questions. It's just there were not answers to be had. But anyway, I'm curious if there was anything you'd add to that.
I'm going to ask you a fun question. Is there anything in the budget that you liked?
That's like asking like, we punched you in the face, we punched all of your advocacy in the face and all the stuff you're working towards. Is there anything that, did my hands smell good when I punched you? It's like,
Mr. Platinum, how was the budget?
aside from yes. I mean, would any of you guys like to say anything else about it?
We're doing $70 million worth of maintenance to the Southwest Corridor and the Central Corridor. I think that's, is it good because we're spending money? Not necessarily, but it's good that we're doing maintenance. I don't think that money doesn't need to be spent. It's going to help us out a lot in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not great if they're not doing maintenance on other stuff.
It's true.
Already all the light rail vehicles you were talking about have service.
But also just not being straight up about what the restrictions are. Like, where did the urgency to replace all the buses come from if we know we've gone through the pandemic and a whole bunch of them were not being used? It's like, why are we in such a hurry, right, in that regard? Like, why wouldn't it just be the natural thing that staff would recommend? Let's just push back our replenishment timeline by 2 or 3 years.
I mean, in total, where did the
this whole issue come from where suddenly now there's a crisis? Do they not forecast these kind of things? Should they not have foreseen this coming?
Well,
What
the
their
board was
explanation?
well, the board was presented a completely different picture last year, right? The board, if you talk to the folks who just left the RTD board, right, they were expecting we had a couple of years of kind of smooth sailing, getting back to SOP, right? That was, I think, the consensus of where we were 12 months ago.
Yeah.
But so far it's not sales tax. Like I think a lot of us were worried, oh my God, like Denver's got all these budget problems. Is it that? Like is this economic uncertainty? Is this tariffs and stuff like that?
Because I feel like that's what former Chair Davidson painted
Yeah.
when he came here last year. He was like, I have these concerns about like sales tax revenue, but he didn't hint at anything like what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
The rest.
Yeah, so the budget book says this about grants for this, this is 25, not 26, proposed 25. The 2025 budgeted grant revenue is primarily comprised for FTA section 5307, grant annual portionments for preventative maintenance, as well, and that's the total grant revenue is expected as said to 349 million, as well as $5 million state credit for the zero debt use program. $5 million out of 349 is nothing. So that says it. So this is primarily FTA grants for maintenance.
Except if there was $150 million somewhere in there for Colfax BRT, which is not even an RTD project.
But it's not, but nothing's, but if there was 150, if they're gonna mention 5 million, why would you hide the 150 million? Okay.
It's weird. It's just weird. Like you have to present, like you can't just like call it good of present a confounding slide and have some commentary and expect everyone to get it. Like that is bad.
We should be able to verify the amount of the 5307 grants on
Yep.
the FTA website, right? So that maybe that's something I'll
The other
do
thing,
some homework tonight on.
well, yeah, well, tomorrow. The other thing that RT will say is that they do not make assumptions for future grants. So one of the other problems that we have in painting a coherent forecast is that they forecast and estimate future sales tax. They don't forecast grants, which is weird because if you're going to show grants in your base period and you're going to have 0 grants in your future period, especially if you have ongoing capital, a large city good repair project, you would expect that you should have scenarios for grants, of like a no grant scenario, low grant scenario, or whatever. Even if it's not necessarily on your main presentation, you should have a breakout somewhere. But that,
In 2026, will there be SB 184 and SB 230 grant money available for RTD to apply for?
so that's the other thing. The state has come forward, and I feel like the state has come forward and been a pretty good partner to RTD. They have proactively put new funding sources together. And we do not see evidence that RTD has been putting forward the dashboards that are required for them to get the revenue. Now, maybe this, again, I don't know what the 26 announcements are going to be. This is in the future, but from what we can tell, given how the flunking of the finishing fast tracks report was, right, and how unserious that was, it just does not seem like there is a huge urgency to get RTD into a spot where they can get the state's money.
Yeah, I think last question. Do you have a hand in the back there?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I heard a little bit about maintenance that was done on the rail, but I didn't hear more about the overall general maintenance to any other services such as the buses, facilities. Like I heard you mention it, but I didn't hear like an actual breakdown of how much is being spent on that.
So I have a core request, and RTD is asking me to spend $600 of my own money to understand that.
As someone who has spent the last 3 days reading through all 500 pages of Excel's power billing information, you cannot even find out what RTD pays for electricity. It's just utilities. What's gas, what's water, and they also pay at least 2, probably more like 3 different electricity bills, and what each one is for is also a nightmare, so good luck.
Jack,
So,
do you happen to know any of the numbers behind the Boulder bus garage maintenance for new construction?
No, I don't know the numbers behind that. I do
It's
know the Flatiron flyer that they're proposing for each transit for.
Cool.
so
Yeah.
any final thoughts before we move back to our normal stuff?
Amazing. In the interest of time, we'll keep chugging along. As you'll know, we do this monthly. We look at ridership stats for RTD, year-over-year growth. How are we doing? Bus is down, light rail's up, but I think we have to think about the baseline, right? Light rail from a year ago was when we were doing ton of work on the southeast corridor, and yeah, the train's running at 10 miles an hour. So yeah, I guess now that the train's running at normal speed, we'll want to use them again, which is good to know. Heavy rail is down 1%, but thanks to the ridership recovery on the light rail, year over year we're up 1%. But again, when we think about when we think about this from where we were pre-pandemic, it's still very, very far from where we need to be. So again, everything we talk about, whether that's like the budget and expanding ridership, it comes down to expand service. Think about how you run your operations so that you can get more people on RTD services. That is the bread and butter of what RTD does, and it's the bread and butter of all our advocacy. It's how do we get more people on buses, and that needs to that is obviously preceded by ensuring that we run a service that people want to use.
Can I point one thing out on that slide?
Sure.
I'll be quick. It's worth pointing out that the plus is the yellow bars in the bar chart here, and the light rail is the, I believe, the light blue. So 3 percentage points on bus versus 16 percentage points on light rail are probably not that much different in terms of aggregate numbers of riders.
Yeah, that's a great.
Can I ask a really quick question? It seems like most of the time when we have updates, bus has been going up. Bus has been performing pretty well since the pandemic. It's been kind of a workhorse because it all exists, but seeing a 3% decline honestly surprises me a little bit. That we've been seeing declines, is that new? Or, and then is that, my first thought is maybe that's the Colfax BRT or the Colfax GDT project, maybe.
It's also possible that it's people going back to the light rail. Like,
Oh,
people
sure.
had to leave light rail and like go to bus for a while. Now it's kind of switching back. Now that it's actually operating. That's just conjecture. I don't.
Yeah.
We need the numbers for all of 2025 to understand this precisely. The other theory we have is it's permanent demand destruction. It's that these people used to ride the light rail, right? They used to make transfers to a bus, and there's a cohort of them who are not coming back, right? The handful of people who are, right, you're seeing the light rail bouncing back a little bit, right? Because we had such a terrible base.
Okay, I was just curious. That surprised me to see a bus decline.
Because we don't really know. We won't know until we've got like probably a full year of route data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we have like the Flatiron Flyer data, but we don't have the full.
Correct. We don't have the bus
yeah.
route.
We have up through the end of the May scheduled period now. I just haven't had a chance to process it.
Because Flatiron Flyer's been doing really well.
Yeah.
That's kind of
So
one of
it's
the bright
not bad.
spots of this whole thing. So.
Yeah, the other thing towards like running frequent service is obviously the operators and having staff that is both able to show up and also just like available, like ensuring that we have the right capacity of staff. And this is something we've also been tracking. Hiring was something that RTD was doing a good job of, but as we can see here, year over year, like bus hiring has actually decreased.
Now, part of this is that they went back and they resegmented, and they're like, actually, by the way, we've been including a whole bunch of trainees and retirees in our numbers. So most of the bus decline is probably attributed to that, probably.
Yeah.
But it's still like we still got somewhere between like a 15 and 17% vacancy ratio, depending on what we're talking about.
And we did see an increase in budgeted headcount for bus this year as well, right? Summer.
Yes, that was that like May or June or something like that. I'd have to look again.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong though, like we are, even though we're not expanding service, like hiring and stuff continues as planned. So like these vacant, like if, despite the headcount and despite budget not expanding, these numbers are already in the budget. So any vacancies you see here, in an ideal world, we would fill them in 2026 and like the rest of 2025. But as we know, RTD has a retention issue.
So, I mean, in the budget, they seem to be saying a different thing. They, in the budget book, they were very stern. They were saying like, we're going to pause hiring and like stop our hiring efforts. So, are we planning to fill those vacancies, or is that just like a number that we have?
Well, to Director Nicholson's credit, he tried to ask about that. And Chris, did you get a good answer on that?
Not really.
And that was a projected like $7 million in annual savings from closing applications to vacant positions, something along single-digit millions. If I remember right? Any better numbers there?
That sounds about right to me off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
I don't like to speak
So
without having
barring us having better data, I think the assumption is these vacancies are still up for grabs. Like, you know, we're still trying to hire for them, but again, as with everything relating to the budget and the future of RTD, it's kind of up in the air.
Well, and this is July, right? So there's
Yeah.
been however many months of, 3 months of hiring
Yeah.
since this. So before any of the budget stuff dropped.
So maybe at the last meeting of the year, we can reflect on August and September numbers. Cool.
Juno is gonna, if you want to talk about paratransit or one of us.
I just got here, someone else should handle.
That's okay. Sure, I can talk about it. So, who watched the last RTD board meeting? Yeah. All right. So, contrary to I think what many of us in GDT were hoping for, is along with many of our allies at ADAPT, RTD did move forward with a modified version of the program modifications that did raise the cost of access on demand for riders. There was a agreement. I think Director Geisinger put forward a change that lowered the cost from $650 to $450 for non-live fares and stuff like that. So that I think took a little bit of the edge off of this. But this still was, it was a meeting where we had 3 hours of public comment, and I think people were frustrated that they weren't feeling heard. But my personal feeling was that management put the board in an impossible position where the board did not have adequate information to make any other decision than probably the one that they made. So it's really tough. I think the ask is to hit pause on this and try to do a full survey that was actually going to be based on need. One of the things that, if you watched the RTD Accountability Committee last meeting, there was a consultant who presented on this. And unfortunately, I was notified today that the recordings are not available right now. So I'm sorry for you guys, because that 2021 they were. But anyway, there is doubt that even RTD appears to know where its access on demand and access a ride riders actually live. So we're totally in the dark in terms of where people who are either, access on demand is designed for ambulatory folks who have disabilities, who are either like blind or some other kind of mental disability of some kind. They don't even know where they are. So the board is committed to do more work on this. So the story is not over. Joe.
All right, so as we've been talking about for a little while here, there's been multiple asks to RTD to publish a system-wide static map, just to be able to give people who are new in town, people who are new to using the system, people who want to ride different sections of the city than they have familiarity with. Somewhere for people to just look at a static map that loads quickly, that's easy to say, oh, that route goes there, that route goes there. Oh, I can go to the zoo. I didn't realize I could do that.
And more importantly, for the weirdos that just stare at maps in their free time.
Yes, for the out-of-state transit.
Might put them up on our wall. Maybe,
RTD as an agency has not meaningfully dedicated resources towards this. So one of our GDT members, Daryl, has put together an incredibly well-designed static map that includes all of the. Oh, here we go.
And you do one more, I think.
Nice. All of the insets of the various high-density areas of service. So things like downtown Denver, downtown Boulder, Longmont, the places that make it hard to do this map effectively. He's been able to capture all of that in one really well-presented, really well-designed graphic design PDF that I encourage everybody here to go look at, share around, talk up his skills, because this is pretty incredible.
So Daryl, if you're listening.
So that's downloadable now?
It's a PDF, and it's available on our Slack for now. Daryl has gotten some feedback from several of our members, is putting some finishing touches, trying to make a couple of things just a little bit bigger and easier to see. But we think it's basically there, and hopefully we're going to have a meeting with Stuart Summers. We're going to talk about what it would take for RTD to adopt something like this.
Yeah, because didn't RTD staff say like this couldn't be done, and then a volunteer did it for free?
It's
basically a short amount of time.
If Daryl's listening, I think he should sell this, and we should buy posters from him. And
I would totally buy
Absolutely.
theater.
This
movie
would be on
theater.
my wall.
This would be on my wall too, with pride.
For real.
So,
But then we have to-
thank you, Daryl.
Has he got one for the downtown bus plan yet?
Yes, an inset, he does.
He's got a
Yeah.
nice like subway style one for that too, right?
He does, yeah. So Daryl's the man.
So if anyone here did not listen into the Operations Safety and Security Committee meeting this week, our own Director Pellieri put forward a motion to modify the advertising contract and the current RFPs that are out for advertising such that 0% of transit vehicle windows would be allowed to be covered by ad wraps. So the background here for anyone who hasn't been watching this very closely or is new to the group is generally that plastering our buses in advertising, using them as driving billboards, is seen as not respecting the dignity of the purpose of our vehicles. The purpose of RTD is to move people from point A to point B, to allow people to live their lives with a mode of transportation that works for them, that's affordable for them. And treating them as a source of ad revenue, we'll cover up the windows of the bus, our riders don't have to see out, because it's more important that we make a little bit of money. According to the National Transit Database in 2023, that was $50,000 for the entire year in 2023 that RTD got from advertising. There's some funkiness there because if you go 2 years before that, it was like 1.6 million, so it could be some weird contracts. But ultimately, when we're talking about $1 billion budget, this is not a huge line item.
And now's the time to care because, like, it's beautiful out right now. Like, I was on the 10 over and just seeing, like, the fall leaves change and stuff because I was on a bus without covered wraps. Like, I would have been pissed if they put those little dots all over my window that give me a headache. Like, it sucks, right? I mean, it's like, I don't know, for pennies, right?
Yeah,
like,
it ends up, it tells us where the priorities are, right?
Yeah.
Are the priorities to make a tiny bit of revenue? Well, if that is the priority, then why isn't there, why can't I get a Sonoran hot dog in the bus concourse in Union
Yep.
Station?
Yep.
We can pay rent to sell those. Like, why can't?
sell me some RTD merch in the underground bus
Exactly.
terminal at that
so
point.
if it really is a revenue question, I think there's other ways we can do this that are more creative and better for the brand of RTD,
Mhm.
not the brand of the people who advertise on RTD. There was a mix of support and some tepid support and some skepticism in that meeting. Brett, if you want to speak in more detail, you're more than welcome to, but I think we as a group, it's important that if the conversations on this motion continue, if it's something you all care about, please, contact your board member and talk about it.
Yeah, I'd just say, if you're interested in hearing the discussion near the end of the meeting, I think he said it well. It really shows the priorities of the agency. Thanks for the support on that.
Do we know who the holdouts are on the board currently?
Busick doesn't like it.
Do we have any people who are represented by Busick?
It is literally not worth.
So most of the
Still
lukewarm reactions came from, I'll try not to sell this short, it came from, we don't know exactly what this is going to cost us, right? We don't know the marginal benefit of allowing advertisers to cover windows. And that's the number that I think a lot of the members of the board that are not in support of this, that's what they want to see. They want to understand what's the actual impact to the agency's bottom line. And I think that coming out of that meeting was a request to staff to basically, when this RFP is closed and can be commented on, then you would get those numbers.
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Of course, please do.
So the fun challenge with that one is we can't get those numbers. Because it's an active RFP process, the staff will not provide to anyone outside the procurement process what the individual numbers are, what the delta is, so they will know exactly how much for each of the proposed individuals. They can't tell us, so we have to make the decision to some degree blind. One thing that Director Pagliari and I have discussed is basically saying we are going to pass this policy for this contract so that we start this contract off at 0%, and then we will let staff come back to us in 2027 once we have a slightly different board and say, okay, you know, we've been doing this for a year and change now. If you would like to offer us the possibility of additional advertising options, we are happy to consider that and consider how much revenue they would get us. Because right now we can't even look at those numbers, but whoever we hire can then come to us and say, we would like you to do this in addition, and we can consider that then. So there's a way to have a downside protection there, so that the board doesn't feel like it's authoring in perpetuity, you know, basically saying you're gonna do this forever. It builds in the option for us to reconsider, which makes it a little bit less frightening for some of those folks.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep.
Looks like Matri had a question.
I have one question. So, I have been following the current RFP on this. I couldn't even use today. But from what I'm aware, RTD was asking potential contractors to submit 2 bids.
Yep.
One for like what we had. This basically, you know, I think 50% window coverage.
Yeah.
And one for none. So those numbers, even after it's closed or even after it's announced, we will not get like the 2 submitted for each company, like the difference there.
Correct. And I will say, it was originally at 50%, and it's because of what Brett did that we even got them to be asked at 0. So if he had done nothing, this would have just moved forward, and we'd be stuck with it for 5 years or whatever it's going to be.
But when they come to the board with the contract, don't they say how much revenue they're expecting?
Yes, but
So can't they be asked to come with the 2 different options? If they're coming to say, if they would normally come to say, let's say nothing had changed, and it was like,
Yeah.
this is what we were expecting in revenue. It's they're doing a standard approach, 2 different options in the RFP.
Yeah.
Come with both. Come to the board when they this is the highest proposed. Let's assume it's the same bidder proposing the highest either way. Here's the proposed revenue. If you go with no cover, if you go with no window cover, and if you go with window cover, I'm sure they can share both numbers.
That is a great point. I know that during the process before
understood.
So Director Pagliari and I are speaking with the point staffer on this early next week with Stuart Summers, and I'll raise that exact point of like, at a minimum, you guys pick the people, can we see both of those and choose between? So that's a really, really phenomenal point. So
That's what it should be.
yeah.
So I'm just doing a time check because we are falling a little bit behind right now. It's been a really important conversation, but I wanted to talk and remind the group. We've got a guest in town, Michael Nuttall, who's joining us from the Friends of Grand Junction Union Depot group that are raising money. We delivered, or I should say we as part of the Western Rail Coalition delivered a letter of support for them last month. We had planned a trip out to see them, and unfortunately for timing reasons this has not been able to happen. But a couple of us a few months ago visited this site, this beautiful building that has seen better days. But I'm just going to quickly show you what vision he is working towards. This beautiful, beautiful restoration of this facility and incorporation of some other city investments of a bus depot. So just maybe for a minute, just super quick, just introduce yourself and just some of the stuff you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. As James said, my name is Michael Nuttall. I am the vice chair of the board of directors for Friends of GGA Union Depot, and I was honored to be invited less than a week ago to be able to speak at this meeting since I was passing through town. But we started in 2023, incorporating as a 501c3 nonprofit organization with the purpose of restoring Grand Junction's historic Union Depot. The Union Depot is the most architecturally and historically significant building in Grand Junction. It was constructed in 1906 for the Denver and Rio Grande Western and Colorado Midland Railroads for their service to Grand Junction. But unfortunately, starting from the 50s or 60s, due to a lack of interest in passenger rail and continued deferred maintenance costs, the building fell into disrepair, and Amtrak vacated the station in 1992 and it became abandoned. But since we established our nonprofit in 2023, we have raised over $100,000 in community donations alone. We have over 300 members of our organizations who offer support to us. We have been able to secure local grants through the city. They're usually quite small, but we use those grants to make even more money. We have been able to secure 2 federal grants through AmeriCorps, the AmeriCorps NCCC program, which isn't a capital grant, albeit, but it is a labor grant which allows people to come in and complete hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of labor without us having to pay for it. And that's the vision right now is just last week, on last Wednesday in our local newspaper, Amtrak finally formally published that it has finalized a lease agreement with us, so they will be moving back into the Union Depot following So we are very, very excited to have this beautiful building return to being a train station as it was always meant to be, and being a community center as it was always meant to be. The whole building isn't going to be a train station. We'll do a hybrid approach similar to the model that you did here at Union Station in Denver, so that the wing of this right wing of the building, that'll be Amtrak Station. All of the platforms will be elevated so that they are ADA compliant. Amtrak is investing $6 million into making these platforms ADA compliant. The current train station is not. So we have been working with the stations team and the platform team to make sure that happens. And then, of course, that is in partnership with the CDOT's new Grand Junction Mobility Hub as part of CDOT's larger Mobility Hub program, which is going to unify our local Grand Valley Transit service in Mesa County, as well as with Greyhound and Mustang services. But we're really working on fundraising. You know, we're looking at a $3 to $4 million budget to get this project done, which actually maybe compared to what you're used to isn't a ton of money. We have submitted a grant application for the State Historic Fund for $250,000. We will find out if we had been awarded that grant in December, but a major focus right now is on the recent notification of funding opportunities through the FSP National Grant. That would allow us potentially to apply for $2.8 million from them, which would allow us to essentially complete the project. That would be enough money for us to complete the project. But a major contingency on that is that a government agency has to be who applies for these FSP national grants. And so a major thing that's on us is trying to convince, for example, our local city of Grand Junction or the Colorado Department of Transportation, Region 3 is our local region, to be the applicant for this grant. So that's the hope, that's what we're working on right now, and we're hoping to be able to have some sort of government partner for this grant application by the deadline of January 7th. In the meantime, in preparation, we are already writing the grant so that staff, city staff, or CDOT staff have to do barely any work to actually submit the grant. And we also want to make it very clear that we aren't actually asking for any money from whichever government agency would partner with us. We would provide 100% of the matching funds that are required for this grant. We just need a government applicant for the FRA grant.
You need their paper and their signature, that's basically it.
Primarily, yes. But I do hope that sometime you'll be able to come visit us in Grand Junction and visit one of the most walkable downtowns in the United States. You know, we were ranked as the 8th best downtown by USA Today a couple of years ago. So I hope that you'll be able to come and visit us sometime and be able to view the beautiful work.
As quickly as we can. All right, last little bit of news for rail fans out there. Out of nowhere, because this was not on my bingo card, Aspen, Carbondale, Roaring Fork Valley is looking at the former Denver and Rio Grande rail corridor for restoration of transit service. So, hard to say exactly where this came from. It sounds like there may have been involvement from potentially some private entities as well. We don't know exactly who they are, but it's just more momentum. Oh, yes.
Is that the same corridor that has an amazing bike path on it?
Yes. This is the bike path.
Okay.
So that's kind of the question, right? Is that we assumed, I think as advocates, that like, oh, we're never getting this back. Like the bike people that got this. But if there's a vision, I think like rails to trails was very much a 1970s phenomenon. Now it's rails with trails. If there's right of way, if there's room, let's have a train running right next to some bikes.
There's plenty of room because they could take lanes from the highway.
We do have one question, then we got to run.
When you say transit, is this specifically rail transit? Because I believe there is already like a BRT along that.
There is already a BRT, that is correct. They are also considering this for potential bus use as well. So it's not a for sure a rail that will return. It is a formal rail corridor that they're looking at transit options on top of. And given how narrow the right-of-way is, it actually might make sense to be rail more than bus, but we'll see what they come out with. But we've definitely got some people on the rail side of things who are trying to get in touch with them because we're so curious what they're doing. But really excited. So really quick before we go into our candidate forum, if you are a member, this is not your first time, and you enjoyed pizza, if you would be so kind as to scan this little barcode up here. I pay for the pizza myself because we are not yet a 501c4. We are working toward that expeditiously. But for now, it is just on my bank account paying for the pizza. So if you had a slice and you are a normal member, this is your first time, please do not worry about this at all. It is our welcome and way of saying hi. Thank you for coming. Let's give you another 10 seconds. Only if you had pizza, don't worry about it otherwise. All right. Sweet. All right, so with that, I will hand it off to Saga Paul, who is going to host our conversation with the candidates.
Amazing. Well, yes, the moment you're all here for. We have 5 amazing folks who are planning to run for the RTD board candidates next year in 2026. And this is, a ton of these folks have been involved with GDT, and you'll recognize their faces. We have some new faces too, but hopefully this will be the first of a long partnership with all these candidates with GDT. Prior to me introducing the candidates, I will invite Chris Nicholson, one of the existing RTD board candidates, to quickly, very, very quickly, talk about the significance of being an RTD board member, as well as what it takes and the challenges and the uphill climb that the 5 of these folks face in their candidacy, so that we can best support them. So, Chris, hand it over to you. Please be judicious.
Yes, I'll model answering quickly for all the people who are about to answer questions quickly. Hi, I am Chris Nicholson. Thank you. Sorry. As I think a number of people who are in the RTD board now can attest, running for office is the easy part, but at the time it feels incredibly hard, especially when it comes to folks. Some people who are up here will be lucky and not have an opponent. Some people will be up here and have multiple opponents. And it is an incredibly grueling process on a personal level. It is on some days soul crushing. It is invigorating in some ways. And I encourage you both to get to know these people on a policy level, but also get to know them on a human level. Because one of the things that I've learned that I think is most important about running for especially low-level office like this is that as much as voters want to know what you think about transit and all this stuff, they want to know who you are as a person, can they relate to you, and can they trust you? And the better sense you get about people as humans, the better you're going to have an appreciation of how voters are going to view them at the end of the day.
Okay, amazing. Well, without further
folks who are speaking should be holding the mic.
Okay, well, without further ado, in alphabetical order, I'll introduce the candidates sitting before you today, and then allow them to speak. But yeah, we have 5 members. So we have, in alphabetical order, Coleman Erickson, running for District J. You can wave, raise your hand. Jack Rosenthal, running for District O. Joe Meyer, running for District C. Michael Farrington, running for District K. And Tim Pegg, also running for District J. So before I start, I'll say again, we we have a lot of questions, both from the audience right now as well as prepared questions. So every question will be timed. You will see a placard from Cody at the 15-second mark and a stop placard. So please be respectful of everyone's time here, but we're looking forward to hearing from you. So with that, I will hand it. We'll just go in order of how you'll have decided to seat yourselves. But if you could tell us about yourselves and touch upon your district and why you're running for RTD. Start with Joe.
Perfect.
1.5 per person. Yes, and you have 1.5 minutes.
All right, I'll see if I can buy back any time here too. My name's Joe Meyer. I am running first and foremost because I think we can see a little bit more ambition at RTD. I had the good fortune of being in college at School of Mines from 2012 through 2017. That's when the W line opened. It's when the A line opened. It's when the G line opened. It's when the B line opened. There was a lot of really great energy around the conversation about what RTD was going to do for the region. And I would love to see us be able to capture that optimism again, capture that ambition again. We don't need to build billions of dollars worth of infrastructure to do that. I think there's a lot of day-to-day improvements we can make. There's a lot of high-value, relatively low-cost things that we can do if we just have a board that's willing to do things a little bit differently, do things a little bit more cowboy than historically. And I want to bring my background as an aerospace consulting engineer who works on quick turnaround, prototype aviation projects, and take that experience, bring it to the RTD board and say, yes, we can solve technical problems that are hard, and we can do it quickly, and we can do it cost efficiently. We just need to have the right people in place to really think about it.
Cool. I'm Jack Rosenthal, and I am.
So
Yeah.
Can you also very quickly tell people where your district is?
Yeah. District C is basically the northwest corner of Denver. It's the north side. It's 5 Points. It's Rhino. It's Lodo. It's here. It's here. Yeah. It's Sunnyside. It's Sun Valley. I'm gonna miss pieces. It's Berkeley. It's the Highlands. Like, yes, West Colfax, Sheridan to Colorado, northern border of Denver to Colfax, and then to Mississippi for a portion of it.
Thanks, Joe. My name is Jack Rosenthal, and I am running in District O, which is a good majority of Boulder County. It's Boulder County west of 95th Street, so that includes Boulder, Louisville, Superior, Netherland, Lyons, some of Longmont. It's a fairly large district. And I've been an RTD rider since 2014. I similarly also went to the Colorado School of Mines, where I was introduced to the W line and the 16 that we used to have there, and got my degree in computer science there. I see Sam and Ross are in the room there. They went to school with me, and thank you for showing up. And I moved on up to Boulder in 2018, got a job at Google. And worked on Chrome OS there. So if you've ever used a Chromebook, you can blame me for your experience. And I met my husband there in Boulder, and I think on maybe after our second date, we ran into each other on the bound getting groceries, literally. So I knew it was meant to be. And so I've been around Boulder and will live in Louisville pretty much in a month from now. And really excited to take my software background to the board and bring something unique.
Hi, I'm Tim Pegg, and I am running for RTD District J. Some things you should know about me are that my campaign will be informed by my experiences working as an engineer, as well as a lead for YIMBY North Metro, and as a transit user. As an engineer, what I spend a lot of my time on is understanding my clients' needs, and then I help them understand the constraints involved in solving the problem, and then we work together on the trades imposed by that to deliver the best possible product. As a lead for YIMBY North Metro, something that I really want to work on are the interlocking problems of land use and transportation that make life really expensive for low-income families, as well as folks who have disabilities that prevent them from driving. And finally, I myself am a transit user. That started in 2019 when I moved to Westminster so I could bike to work every day because my car commute was making me miserable. What that led to is that in 2021, it made sense to sell my car so that my partner and I can be a one-car household. That would not have happened if RTD did not provide the service we needed. So I guess your big takeaway from me should be that I am an RTD success story, but I anticipate that the next RTD success stories won't necessarily look like me. And I hope to work in depth with the RTD staff and folks like GDT to deliver a good transit system that serves everyone. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Coleman Erickson. I'm running for the RTD Board of Directors in District J. District J is the powerhouse of the North Metro suburbs in Denver. That's Westminster, that's North Glen, that's Federal Heights, and the western portions of Thornton. I'm running for the RTD Board of Directors because of the work that has inspired me here at GDT. I recognize so many faces here, as I'm sure many of you do me, because I've been with GDT going on maybe 2 years at this point, and it's been hugely inspiring to be in a room full of transit users that know the struggle on a day-to-day basis. What I'm focused on has always been advocacy. Since I was in high school, I was the train guy, and that was a fun name to bring around for a while until I got a car, until GDT pulled me back out of that. And I'm very glad to see that there's a place for advocates and a very supportive network. And that's what I want to bring to the RTD Board of Directors. I am not a candidate, a politician, jumping into the world of advocacy. I am an advocate jumping into the world of politics so that I can solve the problems that I have seen my whole life since high school and I've seen crop up and be discussed here at GDT. And I want to be that voice on the board.
Hi, folks. Many of you know me. My name is Michael Farrington. I am running to represent District K, which is Commerce City, South Thornton, parts of Brighton, and unincorporated Adams County. I'm going to keep it really simple. RTD doesn't work. RTD is doing worse than it was 5 years ago. It's a system that we all know has let us down. There are people here who are late because their bus or train didn't come on time tonight. That is a consistent issue with RTD. I'm running because I've worked on challenging problems. I've worked on hard issues. I worked for the governor in transit reform on 161. I've worked for the governor on housing legislation, including legislation that we've gotten sued for. Joe said we need a cowboy. I'm your cowboy. I can bring the legal experience that the board lacks to drill down on why the agency is lying to us. We, the directors, are the people who are supposed to run the agency, but we don't run the agency. A lot of people in various fun roles run the agency. That needs to change. I bring the experience from the legal background. I bring an experience from YIMBY. I bring experience actually changing things like the zoning code in a number of cities. They may not like me, but they know I can change things.
Okay, so we have a ton of really good audience questions that I want to get to, so I'm going to speed things up here. What is your vision for RTD? You have 30 seconds, so this is a bit of a speed run. And we'll start with Michael.
It's really simple. I'm going to take less than 30 seconds. My vision of an RTD that works is an RTD that works for everyone. It works for the homeless person just trying to get work. It works for the homeless person who's trying to get from the shelter to work every day. It works for the mom who can drop her kids off. It works for everyone. Until we have an agency that everyone can ride, we will continue to have a room that looks mostly like this. Look around. We are not representative of what Denver looks like. An agency that works for everyone will start looking less like us.
That was 30 seconds. Good job. Time frame for these questions is 1 minute. I want to be clear.
Okay, fine. We'll go on that.
Sorry. Well, if we want to fit the audience stuff.
Yeah, no, let's do 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds.
All right. My vision for RTD is as simple as making things reliable and giving people choice in transit. Right now in the Denver metro area, most people do not have choice in transit. Either you have to take the bus or you have the ability to use your car. And no one feels like they have the ability to do what they want with transit. You know, cars were sold to us as the idea of freedom of choice, but that's not what choice looks like. And I want to bring back choice in transit to the Denver metro area.
Sure. My vision for RTD is a transit system that helps everyone get to their destinations. And I think if we build a well-connected transit system with short headways and things like that, I think it's easy to show people the value that that system can deliver. And so that is sort of what I'd like to work on. Thank you.
All right, everyone. So people have lost trust in RTD, and why that matters is because if we want to run the transit system that our community needs, we're going to need more money to do it eventually. And that means go into the ballot box at some point. And if we want voters to vote for a little bit more money for RTD, they got to trust us, and I would like to turn that around.
My vision for RTD is I want people to talk about the good experiences they had on RTD. I want everybody who rides the system, whether they ride it because they need it to work so that they can do the things that they need to do in their life, or they ride it because they don't want to own a car, or they'd rather not sit in traffic. Every single one of those people needs to trust the system, know that they can rely on the system, and feel good about what the system delivers for them. And I believe that requires some high frequency, reliable core routes that we focus on, and then we expand on that success later for more money.
Just hang on to the mic. I'll just like really shout into this, I suppose.
We're doing a snake draft?
Yeah, we'll just snake back. Okay. Next question. You have 90 seconds. What are your top 3 priorities for RTD?
Priority number 1 is to rebuild the public trust in the system that it will work for them. I want people to be optimistic and see RTD in a positive light. And there's a ton of work that goes into that, but that public perception is really, really, really important. We see the downsides of that right now, especially with the way the state legislature is looking at reform and with a lot of the pressure from the public. Priority number 2 would be to be able to meaningfully grow revenue. I would love to see RTD become a $2 billion a year agency. We're not on a trajectory to do that right now. I think there's a lot of creative ways and there's a lot of difficult ways to get there. And I think we're gonna need to do all of those things. And then priority 3, I would like to see RTD look to meaningfully modernize their fleet over the next 5 years and to make some meaningful commitments towards bus electrification, including all the infrastructure that's required to support that, and modern, low-floor, accessible light rail vehicles, so that we have a fleet that builds on that rider experience.
So I live up in Boulder County, and in 2004 we voted for a plan called Fast Tracks. You may have heard of it. And we were promised an improvement in Denver-Boulder bus service, a new BRT line between Denver and Boulder, which we know and love today as the Flatiron Flyer, and rail to Boulder. And we have paid in $600 million into Fast Tracks over the past 20 years. And what we got out of it is nothing but a stub of a train to Westminster. And we got 38% less trips than we had pre-Fast Tracks between Denver and Boulder on the what was the BFHDTS routes. We actually have less service now with the Flatiron Flyer. So we paid in not only in the amount of service that we got with our buses, but also we don't have we paid in $600 million and we got not much out of it. And so I would like to turn this around. People look at, well, FISA, that cannot be the Boulder train money, but no, that's the Boulder train money. And we are the only substantially incomplete corridor of Fast Tracks, and we need to make that happen. I have 15 seconds left, so here's my 2 other things. Let's see. I would really like to look for new innovative ways that we can find revenue. And number 3, it was on my head here. Well, I'm at stop anyway. There we go.
My top 3 priorities for RTD are safety, frequency, and reliability. I think everyone in this room knows that it is safe to ride RTD. Some of us remember how unruly Union Station was in 2021 and how much bad press that generated. And what we really need to do is work on having the public understand again that, yes, it is safe to ride RTD. Frequency. That really plays into things like lowering the cost of missing your bus. We're all human. If you miss your bus on a half-hour headway route, guess what? You get to sit at the bus stop for 30 minutes, and you're going to be late to wherever you're going. When we start shortening those times down to 10 minutes, or let's fantasize here, 5 minutes, suddenly you just leave the house when you're ready to leave the house, and you just take the first bus you get. It's great. And finally, reliability. If you have a set work schedule and you need to get to work on time every day, how many times can you be late before you get in some career trouble? 3, maybe 5 times a year? Even if buses are 99% reliable, you're looking at missing being late to work 3 days a year. That's kind of sketchy, and we need to make sure we have really good reliability numbers.
On my campaign website is a whole host of priorities that I want to focus on. The 4 that I've always been a stickler on because GDT has imprinted it on me are frequency, speed, reliability, and accessibility. And I add to that safety, and to that I refine accessibility on top. Number 1, we need to be an accessible agency, and that doesn't just mean paratransit, but that does mean paratransit. What that means to everyone is that the stations are accessible. You're not dropped off onto the side of a road in a ditch where you don't have adequate signage, adequate shelter. That's not accessibility. Our buses need to be more accessible to more people, and we need to have more accessible buses in the places that don't have it. Safety is paramount to getting ridership back. We see so many people have a bad experience on RTD, and a lot of times it's because they don't feel safe. We are doing a lot as an agency to move in the right direction, but the way to make people feel safe is to make them feel safe with people. I've always been a believer that the more people you see around you, the safer you feel in your space. And that's how downtown feels safe, is when there's people there. And with my third point, I'm being told to stop. So
Thanks, Coleman. I think RTD has a lot of problems, but I have three priorities that I'll kind of mention here tonight. You're welcome to check out my website, michaelforrtda.com/positions, to learn more about my issues. But I think the top 3 are: 1, RTD doesn't have good leadership right now. I'll own it. I'll commit to it. I will fire the GM CEO. I will fire the leadership who don't prioritize us. I'll fire the people who have used the land at RTD unproductively for 20 years. And I'll bring in new people who know what they're doing. I think that's a really important priority. I think we need to be very honest about our limitations. And the reality is we're going to work one night a week. We have a committee meeting, and then we have a board meeting. The person who actually runs the agency day to day is the GM CEO, and the GM CEO does not ride the system. The GM CEO does not respect the system. The GM CEO does not like the city even. Shouldn't be the GM CEO. Second, the end line's uncompleted. The 120's cut. The 112 is a fraction of what it was pre-pandemic. Our communities, we were right next to each other in the North Front Range. He's in the worst part, of course. The North Front Range needs better service. We need to see the 120. We need to see the 104. And the 104 is really easy. We need things like transit signal priority on our lights. We need to build a system that is technologically modern and that prioritizes riders. And finally, is security. Right now, safety and security are an issue for people. They don't feel safe on our systems. That can be solved relatively easily. That's something I will commit to working on along with our unions.
Amazing. Well, thanks for that answer. Shifting gears a bit, you all have talked about your vision and priorities, but I want to understand, like, what steps have you actually taken to listen to your communities and understand what their needs are? And we'll go 1 minute each. Starting with Michael.
Yeah. I'm from Commerce City. I've lived in Commerce City for 15 years. It's an amazing city. It exists because of racialized redlining, where they put the Latinos in our community. They forced them out of Montbello, where they redlined the blacks, but they specifically put Latinos and Latinas in Commerce City, an area that was mostly leftover space from after we freed the Japanese internment camps, and a lot of migrants settled there. That is to say, it is an area that's incredibly underprivileged. It's an area that has been disregarded by the state, and it's an area with amazing food. Commerce City is a place that needs help, and one of the greatest ways we can do that is social services like RTD. When we connect people to the jobs in Denver, which pay way better than the jobs in Commerce City, we create accessibility for the people who can't drive because they may not speak English, or they just may not be in the country long enough to have qualified. Commerce City is an outstanding place. I love it. I also like Brighton, and I love my communities there. I have a ton of the local endorsements. I am meeting with the community. I'm ingrained in that community. I will continue to center my community as I run for this office.
While I love what Michael is doing to represent the community of Commerce City, we all know that Westminster is Bestminster. And I have made it a point, even before I started my candidacy, to start meeting with the city councils in Westminster, Thornton, and North Glen to get to know the politics at play in these cities, because it's going to be very important as an RTD board director to work closely with these elected officials as an elected official. So I've met strongly with these communities, and I've been a part of the GDT mission in the North Metro since I've been in that community. And alongside that is just listening to the operators on the bus. A lot of them have very big, beautiful stories to tell. Just one quick example, I've got 10 seconds. I rode the Wagon Road Park and Ride Flex Ride. And the stories I heard in that 45-minute ride that was supposed to be 15 were amazing and really informed my positions.
So the way that I like to learn about what my community needs is talk to folks in my community. Just by asking people, you know, why don't you take the bus? You can get a lot of different answers. You can get jokes about drugs on the bus. You can get just simple stuff like, well, it just doesn't get there fast enough. And you can get other stories too, like the 72 line in Westminster got cut a while ago, and people really felt like that was a betrayal. It runs through a part of Westminster that has a higher density of low-income families, and they found that hurtful. So why don't you take the bus? You know, that's sort of where I want to start looking for the folks who we can get to take the bus.
So I ride the bus every single day. It is how I get everywhere. And I have over 600 boardings logged on my EcoPass in the past year. And if you'd like to see the data, I'll send it to you, including every single route I've ridden and whatnot, at least where the fare reader worked. You know, through all of this experience, I have sat down and talked with anybody who's willing to talk with me. And I've heard, you know, all of their stories and where do they come from, where do they go, and that when the, in Lafayette, when the new extensions were added to the 225 and the Dash to bring it to the Willoughby low-income housing community, I chatted with people who their commute was shortened and they didn't have to do a 1 mile walk to the bus anymore. And that, you know, I'll meet with anybody who wants to, always, but I go to the community that uses the bus.
District C is an exceptionally diverse part of our region, and I think as a result of that, it's going to be the most difficult area in the RTD network to successfully serve every community's needs at once. That doesn't mean I'm not going to try to do that. I am going to try to show up as many different neighborhood organizations and community events as possible to get face time with people. I currently am on the RTD Citizens Advisory Committee, which has given me great insight into being able to work with my local community on some of their transit needs. I participate in the local business improvement district meetings and neighborhood organization meetings in my area, but I'm frankly going to have to expand that across the entire district, across the entire population of District C, which brings a lot of different needs and a lot of a ton of diversity and a ton of different perspectives.
Cool. Well, one, it sounds like you all are trying and have done a great job of engaging with your communities, which is awesome. Keep doing that. And I'm sure the GDT community will push you further on those things. But I'm going to change gears a bit and move on to the campaign, right? Because obviously it's amazing to be an RTD board member and enact change, but Here's a year to get there, and you'll have a ton to do. But I'm curious, like, what does your path to victory look like? And actually, let's bundle this with the next one too. What steps will you take to get to victory, and what endorsements have you received or are you going to try and seek? So I'll give you a minute, 30 seconds to answer path to victory, steps you have to take, and endorsements.
All right, path to victory, like any political race, is going to require spending a lot of time to meet people, to knock doors, to sit down for coffee with people, to get my name out there, to get my positions out there, and most importantly, to listen to what everybody wants to hear from their future RTD director. Finding out what the community needs and what my blind spots are is an important path to victory, because then I can apply that to, updating the strategy for what I am going to do with this position. In addition to spending a lot of time, it also takes a lot of money. You really have to get that name recognition out there. You have to get your policy positions in front of people, and that requires a lot of literature, a lot of advertising. So I plan to take fundraising seriously, to put myself in a position where not only can I spend time to engage with people, but also spend the money to get my name out there. Endorsements-wise, the most impactful one so far has been ATU Local 1001. That's the transit workers union, for anyone who is unfamiliar. So they represent operators, they represent mechanics, they represent facilities staff. It's the people that make our system work. So I believe that that is one of the most important endorsements, the most important set of people to get on your side. Beyond that, I'll be pursuing members of city council, a lot of politically engaged leaders.
All right. Well, I have very exciting news to share, and that is that I, in my first quarter of fundraising, raised over $22,000, and that is the most money ever raised by an RTD candidate in their first quarter ever. And so I really just, I know there's many people in this room who donated to my campaign. I had over 100 contributions in my first quarter. I got a lot of people behind me. I have every single one of you to thank, because you made it happen. And I'm going to continue strong fundraising, and we're going to use all of this money. We're going to reach voters, and we're going to get my name there on the day when it comes to the ballot, and it'll be great. I'm pulling out on my phone the list of endorsements so I don't miss any. But I also have ATU Local 1001, which is an amazing endorsement. Joe talked about that a bit. And then I would like to share the list of individual elected officials and candidates who have endorsed me: Chris Nicholson, Brett Pagliari, Michael Farrington, Joe Meyer, Michael Doherty, Boulder County District Attorney, Tara Weiner, Boulder City Council, Nicole Spear, Boulder City Council, JD Mangat, Lafayette City Council, Anne-Marie Jensen, Lafayette City Council candidate, Josh Cooperman, Louisville City Council, Junie Joseph, State Representative, House District 10, Anil Pesarmerity, Erie City Council, and candidate for HD 19, Gabriel Saravantes, candidate for HD 31, and Kenny Nguyen, Broomfield City Council, and candidate for HD 33.
Yeah, so the path to victory looks like hard work. It looks like meeting with people in my community mostly. There's also earning the trust of local leaders so that they will endorse. Right? People look up to their local leaders. That's why they are leaders. So earning their trust and earning their endorsement really helps people find you. And then finally, fundraising. As for endorsements, I filed to run on Saturday, so I have no endorsements 4 days in.
In order to get on the board of directors, this campaign is going to take a lot of work, and most of that work is not going to be done by me. It is going to be done by the people that are willing to knock doors with me, to get signatures with me, to be out on the streets, meeting people and reaching people and really making the impact on the community on my behalf. Because as far as I can get, that is not as far as I need to go. And it takes a very strong team of people behind me to get me there. At this point, I have gotten endorsements from city council members in North Glen, Thornton, Westminster, the Megan Burns in North Glen, Obi Azadi in Westminster, principally John Algie, who I've been supporting in his effort to get on the Thornton City Council, and Gabriel Cervantes as well. And I'm very actively seeking endorsements from labor unions across the Denver Metro, especially the ATU 1001, especially AFSCME. If you are involved in labor, I care about being your voice on the board. And I'm very excited to get more endorsements from the rest of the city council members and everyone else running to represent that part of town with the state and federal.
Yeah, I think that Tim said it best. Work. It takes a lot of work. That's the path to victory. It's a lot of work. It's outworking your opponent. That's how most elections work. And I'm confident that I will have that because of all of you. Thank you so much to everyone in the crowd, which there's a ton of you who were at my campaign kickoff on Saturday. That was an incredible crowd. We had more than 50 people show up. We have more than 50 donations already 16 days into my campaign. We've raised thousands of dollars. I have the endorsement of the labor union, ATU 1001. I have the endorsement of elected officials such as Manny Rutinel, who's running for Congress and is my state rep, Chris Van Dyke, who's running to replace him, Gabriel Santaveras, as well as Michael Doherty, who's running for AG and is the current DA. I enjoy a lot of endorsements because I have been working for this for a long time. I'm a politician, but I'm your politician. We need people. We need people who are going to be able to walk into the Capitol and know how to twist arms and break fingers. And I'm really good at breaking fingers.
Cool. I guess starting to pivot more to the audience questions, but how do you plan to get things done? How will you engage with other board members and the legislature and other stakeholders in a productive manner?
Excellent question. Please disregard my comment about breaking fingers. No, but on a serious note, we need to play a little bit more. We need to play a little more hardball with some communities and with the state ledge. For example, Denver. I think many of you are very familiar. Denver was looking at widening Pena, and instead of building an A line, our lobbyist showed up and was like, "Guys, I don't know. You guys should just build roads." I'm sorry, I don't want an agency that is run by people who think that we should build more roads. So it's simple. I'm going to be a voice who's going to question staff, and I'm going to be a voice who questions the legislature. I supported SB 161 to create the Transit Reform Committee. I'm extremely proud that my friend James Flatham is on the Transit Accountability Committee and is going to make a lot of great change. And I also think the state ledge is going to come back and give us some ideas that suck because they're state ledge. We need to work cooperatively with some of our local governments, and we also need to play a little bit more hardball, and I think we don't do a great job of either right now.
I think the biggest thing that we need to do to be an effective agency is have effective governance. Right now, the RTD Board of Directors is seemingly at the will of management, and management is dead set on doing next to nothing. If they could do more than nothing, I'm sure they'd be doing it. We need to be a strong force that tells RTD what to do and doesn't just sign the blank check of whatever Deborah Johnson or any CEO that comes in after her, hopefully soon, is going to bring to the board. So, and part of that is being an effective board in a coalition of people who are willing to do the hard things and push the hard buttons in order to have an effective agency. So I am excited to work with all of the other elected officials, Jack, Joe, Michael, and the people already on the board so that we can be a very effective agency and a very effective board for the agency.
So I work as an engineer. The way I usually try to influence folks' decision is by presenting a broad array of relevant facts. But sometimes, even though you think you've got the right solution and you think the facts are on your side, the folks you're trying to work with just don't believe it meets their needs. And so sometimes you've got to do the work to sit down with them and really understand what their needs are. And not, by needs, I don't mean a policy preference. I mean something deeper than that. Like what, do you need transit to get to work? Do you need transit to do other things in your life? And that applies not only to transit users who are stakeholders, but also folks in the legislature and folks who are local elected officials. They are ultimately accountable to their voters, and they need to show that their efforts with us are delivering for them.
All right, well, I have really good news for you all, and that is everybody who's seated up here I'm with today, I think I will really like working with on the board. As you know, it takes, there's 15 members of the board. It takes 8 votes to get something done. And we have 5 of us seated up here today. 4 of us hopefully will make it to the board. And we've got another candidate who may be looking at B very soon. And if you look at it, I hope that we get 5 for 5, 6 for 6, or 7 for 7 seats next year on the board, and that we're going to start turning this agency around from the inside. And that way we can actually start to make change in the agency. If we have 7 votes and we add in Chris and Brett over there, that's already 9. We have all the votes we need. Outside of the RTD board, we all need to work with external people, the state, et cetera, to make progress. I'm working with Junie Joseph right now, our HD10 representative, on a bill to basically bring eco-passes to the unhoused. And I think that would be statewide across all the agencies. Thank you.
I think step 1 to effectively working with any other municipalities, elected bodies, the state ledge, is proving the value of RTD. So step 1 is shoring up the agency from the inside, making sure that we can get it into a state where it's performing really, really well, using its existing funding streams, using its existing resources, its existing staff, and we can prove that, yes, this agency can be used to solve problems in the metro area. This agency can make an impact on affordability. It can make an impact on the vibrancy of downtown, to use one of the mayor's favorite words. It can make an impact on air quality. There's a whole bunch of solutions that transit can help create. And we need to show the rest of the elected offices that that's the case. And from there, we can work with them to help them understand just how expensive it's going to be to expand a really good system to truly serve the whole network.
Amazing. We have a ton of great audience questions, and a lot of them are about joint service. So this will be a good one. I think, would you support it? And give a very quick one-line justification, starting with Joe. And we'll just do 15 seconds.
No.
Will you support joint service?
Should we ask more specifically, what degree? Because I feel like
Yeah, sure.
it's a couple different joint services.
Yeah, I'll give a couple.
You can justify it.
So joint service as it's currently defined is 3 round trips per day between Boulder and Denver. 3 trips from Boulder to Denver in the morning, 3 trips from Denver to Boulder in the evening.
Longmont.
To Longmont. I'm sorry. Eventually. It is projected to cost in the actual year of expenditure dollars, a little over $1 billion, and an operating cost of about $80 million a year to serve a projected 1,200 to 1,500 daily riders. Oh.
Okay. Go for the context. It's a pass. Everybody else.
Yeah. Everybody has to go 30 seconds.
Lead on.
So because of the cost, the low service, and the marginal benefit of what we could do with that money on other services, I say no. And if we don't own the right-of-way, and BNSF owns the right-of-way, and we're running trains on their track, we are not going to be able to improve that service as much as we want to. We can do better things with the money.
So wait, can I push a little? So you're saying no to the 3 round trips. Are you saying yes to a better service? Or are you saying no in general?
If the state came to me and said, here is a blank check for you to buy the track between Denver and Longmont, to electrify it, and to run 15-minute service, and we will cover the operations costs from now for the next 50 years, then I would say yes. But the money's got to be there.
If the operational costs were half of what you said, because I think there's some peak service stuff in this as well.
Let's just keep going. Will be plenty of opportunities to ask follow-up questions over drinks.
James doesn't get privilege.
Yes.
No privilege.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm a yes, and I believe I explained earlier. However, the thing to look at with joint service is that we have 3 trips in each direction every single day. That is the starter service. What we're doing is we're creating, we're proving to taxpayers that we can do this, and then we're going to go ask them for money, and then we can go run more trips. And the initial service doesn't look ideal. You won't be able to use it for both legs of your commute, but we're going to go prove to taxpayers that they can give us the money to build it out further.
I meant no. I think that it is, well, I'll be honest. I want the Beeline to get built, but I want it to get built as a service that someone would actually use. I've lived close to 3 trips a day type bus lines, the one from Golden to Boulder, and I never found it useful. And I think people will view, I guess it's 6 trips a day on the rail line as just a joke.
I am a no on joint service as it exists now. I am a yes on the belief that RTD and the FRPR need to work together to have a good joint service agreement where we own our own separated electrified tracks and RTD can be a fast local service on the even faster regional service that the FRPR will be providing. So to this, no. To the future, we do absolutely need this.
Yeah, I'm a no to the current plan. It's too much money, and it doesn't touch my district. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money that's going to be less efficient than some of the programs RTD is asking us to cut if the proposed solution is 3 trains a day. That is not transit. That is a headline so that Governor Polis can say, I built the train. I would love to see the 2014 option 2, where we run the N line all the way around. We own the right-of-way. We don't have to deal with BNSF. BNSF already has screwed us for years since 2002. I don't know why we'd pretend that we're not going to now.
Another question, 30 seconds back this way. We've obviously spoken in length about the budget. Are there any areas of the budget you would trim, or are there any creative ways you think we should be trying to raise revenue? And don't just say raising taxes.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of ways. I mean, I think one of the problems is we're not raising revenue because we're not taking advantage of the grants the state is creating, and we're not working with local government partners in a way that would bring some of the revenue in. We can have IGAs where the local government takes on some of the maintenance costs, some of that stuff that really can help defray costs. Second of all, and to the kind of the first one, yeah, I think our marketing budget's too big. We have 112 people in the marketing team. I don't know. I don't think the marketing's very good. I see press articles about how much we suck every day, so.
When I look at the budget, I don't really see a lot of places to trim. But when I look at the revenue, I see one big word, Tabor. RTD needs to be a partner in getting rid of Tabor, and every single person on the board needs to be behind getting rid of Tabor. So that's how I think we can benefit our revenue system and diversify our revenue streams outside of what Tabor allows. But Michael brings up a lot of good points that there are still ways RTD is failing themselves in not pursuing things within our bounds right now.
I think that fixing our revenue problems ultimately comes from re-earning the public's trust in RTD to be safe, fast, safe, frequent, and reliable service. If folks don't see RTD as something they would use or something that improves their community, they are simply not going to ever approve more budget for us.
I'm going to add into what has been said so far in the interest of time. I do think there's 2 things. We can reduce our operational costs, and we can find new innovative sources of revenue. For reducing our operational costs right now, I'd have you know we operate multiple flex rides today, which cost over $400 a boarding. And those can be put to better service. In terms of revenue, I think that we can find new and innovative sources of revenue, such as merch for sale at every service desk, and it could be unique stuff that you can find at every station. All right, thank you.
As far as revenue goes, I believe there's still a lot the agency can do. Boulder has exceptional local service because Boulder pays RTD to run extra service. We can do that with other agencies. I think it's embarrassing that Denver doesn't do it to the level that Boulder does. RTD can run exceptional regional service, and we should continue to lean into that. And we should make it as convenient, as efficient, and as good of a passenger experience as possible. And we should work with municipalities to run local service in concert with them. We should be selling weekly passes. We should be selling annual passes. We should be having vendors at stations.
Cool. We are running up against time here, so I'm going to do a weird combo of a question. One, how will y'all work to fix safety? Because I think everyone has touched on safety in some way or the other. How will y'all work to improve safety on RTD services? And the weird combo is also, what do you want from this group? How can we help you serve your campaign better?
Do you mean safety or security? Passenger safety or?
I'll leave it up to the interpretation of the candidates. And 1 minute.
I think very few people have a perception that RTD's vehicles are mechanically unsafe or that the system is mechanically unsafe. When we talk about safety to the public, what most people think about is antisocial behaviors on transit. And I think we need to acknowledge right up front that it is the perception of personal safety that is the thing that we are going after. We can do anything we want to make the stats look really good, to make the actual safety pretty good, but if the perception doesn't follow that, people are not going to want to get on a bus. They're not going to want to wait at a bus stop at 11 o'clock at night. So we need to go after what behaviors are occurring that lead to that perception, and how do we help fix that perception. Number one for me is we switch from a mindset of fare enforcement to code of conduct enforcement. It doesn't affect me if somebody gets on the bus and doesn't pay the fare, especially if it's because they can't afford it. That's not what we should be fighting for with our safety and security teams, but it does affect every single person's experience if you get on the bus and there's antisocial behavior like drug use.
All right, I would like to use this opportunity to talk about that bill I was working on with Junie Joseph earlier, because it ties straight into this. So I'm working on a bill with Junie Joseph. It's essentially going to provide free partner passes to people who show up to a homeless shelter and they say, I am unhoused, and they spend the night there. And those passes are going to be valid for 6 months. And it's designed to help get them off the ground. They can renew it when they need it. But what this is going to do is these are the sort of people who we would not be getting revenue from anyway. They do not have the money to pay a fare as they board the bus. And for them, getting around is a human right. And so oftentimes where we see conflict with operators and conflict as people board the bus is when they do not have the money to pay the fare. This is going to enable them to board with dignity just like anybody else. And I think it's really going to help turn things around for the people who need it most.
It's really hard to put it better than Joe did, but I will try to be a little more specific and just say I think that one way we can address antisocial behavior on buses is deterrence. I don't know if that looks like more police or more of the Transit Ambassadors program. My perception is that they are official looking enough to deter some bad behavior. And there's lots of research that shows that when folks commit low-level crimes, they're not really thinking about the consequences so much about the probability that they'll get caught. And I see this as an easy fix.
I really like that Tim mentioned the Transit Ambassadors program. I think the idea came out really well, but the execution hasn't been what I expected. When I see the Transit Ambassadors, I see, is that just another cop? Is that like a polo cop? So what I want to see from the Transit Ambassadors program is something that people feel comfortable being around. I do like when I see the Transit Ambassadors talking with people, but we also have to ask, like, what kind of conversations are you having with our transit users? Are you friendly? Are you welcoming? What about your presence can be more of an invitation to create a safer space? And I think the best way we solve perception is accessibility and cleanliness and maintenance of our facilities. We need to make our stations and our bus stops better places to be.
Thanks. I'm going to talk really fast because I have 4 things I want to cover, and that's a lot in 30 seconds. First, I completely agree with Jack's transit equity bill. It's going to be something that I'm going to catch some flack for. My district's red. Donald Trump won my district. But creating access to opportunity for people who cannot afford it otherwise is a must-have. That is why I am here. That is why I am running. Second of all, we need to increase the security. We don't have enough policing. We need to do more, especially on things like fare checks on the N and the E. N-line, I get told so often by people, including people who've helped my campaign, that they don't even know how to pay a fare on the N-line because it's never been checked. That's insane. Third, I want to do fare gates where they make sense. They make sense in some of our southern lines that have issues with kind of delinquent youth. And I know that local governments want to partner with us, and I think that we could do that. Finally, and I got through a lot of those really quick, which is awesome. Finally, this was a merged question, so I'm going to answer the second half that everybody else declined to. What do I need from you to continue what you're doing? You're awesome. You're awesome advocates. You push the agency in the right direction. That's outstanding, and I also need your money. If you go to michael.com, michael4rtd.com, you can give me money, you can support, you can join my mailing list. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
So before we blow past the questions, can someone go and see if we have any online commenters? If we have questions online, because we are live streaming.
I think we have a lot of questions. I'm just calling at a time.
Okay.
If you have more questions, you're welcome to come ask all of us.
Yes, we will be here for. I'll be here for drinks afterwards. I'd love to get to know you. Coleman for RTD.com.
It's Tim for RTD.com, and that's for FOR. The website's not up yet, though, probably next week.
All right, Jack for RTD.com. You can spell it either way you want.
Joe for RTD.com, same thing. For the word, for the number, whatever you want to do.
Cool. And all right, well, first of all, thanks so much for all the participation, all the questions. I know we didn't get through everything, but we will have, I think, everyone here with drinks in hand. So I think there'll be a bit more, a bit less tongue-tied. So yes, we will take a group photo. Yeah, but the other thing, again, make sure you reach out, ask questions, see how we can support these guys. They're all doing an amazing job and are going to help transform RTD with our help. So, yeah, thanks all for being here.
Alrighty. So we're gonna do one facing this way, then I'm gonna have you all 5 come over here and get everybody else in the photo. So nobody move.
Desperately trying to get
Nobody move.
Okay.
We have events after this, don't we?
Alrighty, looking right here, looking right at me. 1, 2, 3, RTD.
RTD.
There it is.
Can we have one with Adriana, please?
Yes, of course I can, Adriana.
This is a random person.
This is a sneak preview.
Right here. Nothing's happening right now. No one else. Alrighty, okay. Everybody looking at me. 1, 2, 3, GDT. GDT. There it is, awesome. Now get over here, line up right here. Everybody find a window behind them, please. If I can't see you, you can't see me. Wait, scratch that person, thank you.
I love that picture. I know, I'm sorry.
As I said, find a window for me. Make sure you can see me, please.
You're gonna go grab drinks?
I think I'll have to get home.
I'm gonna get a little bit crazy.
All right, guys.
You're right here.
We're all transit friends. That's right. Come on in.
Right there. All right, everybody looking at me. Big smiles. 1, 2, 3, GDT.
GDT.
There it is. Wonderful. Thank you all.
Right, we have events still to go on.
You like mine?
We are all going to try and keep this done. We are not going to turn the alarm. And join us next month for some correct figures about front range passenger rail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to Wine Coop Brewing right across Union Station.
That's a huge